the sun up? It's coming close. Good morning from rural eastern North Carolina. Did you know that the majority of the state is rural? I picked my mug that my son got me from the DMZ. That's the zone between South and North Korea. I set the alarm to get up early, and I have an 11-year-old who is not currently the best sleeper. So we stayed up kind of late. We are talking about a big deal happening in North Carolina today. I know my people are like, but it also applies to you because I think everybody lives in a state, and vouchers, school vouchers, which is another word for paid school choice, are on the docket today in North Carolina. And so I was texting with a friend last night, and I was like, how do we, one, get people to use their brains, which seems to be a real struggle in my mind. So if you are a North Carolina citizen, this morning after this video, you are going to go to the hometownholler.com, and at the bottom of hometownholler.com, it's going to say find your representative. So if you don't know who represents you at the General Assembly, they're going to help you. And you're going to call them this morning and leave a voicemail. And you are going to say, hello, my name is Karen, and I live in a rural community. And the rural school, the school in a rural community is the glue of the community. And you're going to say, why are you voting for something that 75% of North Carolinians don't want? And there is the question. At the end of the day, vouchers are being pushed by a very small group. And how and why is the question. It's difficult to listen to you with this hat on. Well, this hat represents rural North Carolina. And I got it from the gas station. I don't think they killed a raccoon for it. Maybe it's like a vegan one. So get your coffee and settle in. I'll see if I can block naughty people from talking this morning. If you're wondering, okay, how do I talk to my reps about the voucher program? I would tell them this is not a Republican-Democrat issue. If not, explain Todd Werner from Tennessee. Todd Werner is a pretty strong Trump supporter. He's also a rep for a small area in Tennessee. And he said, my district has no private schools. Why would I want to pay for families in Memphis and Nashville to go to private school? It doesn't make any sense. Here's what he said. I'm for less government, but it's government's role to provide a good public education. If you want to send your kid to private school, then you should pay for it. He said, we have to have fiscal responsibility on all of it, every single dime, every penny we spend. There's no audit for them. Not to mention the private schools get to pick who they want. Yeah, I think in rural areas, public schools really are the hub of the community. They're not just an academic institution, right? They're providing critical services to the students that need them. And they're a hub for community engagement. There might be concerts, sports, plays. Like our town is having a new high school built, and it's really been a town decision. I mean, we're all in it together, and we're excited. My husband doesn't get to play tennis because we have no tennis courts right now. Where if you lived in Charlotte, you could go play tennis 8,000 places, but not here. Um, and so what happens is if you have a voucher, the money that leaves suddenly leaves a smaller pot of money for the kids left behind. So then you have this smaller pot of money that pays for facilities, transportation, administration, and instruction with the smaller revenue stream. And that's a big deal. But what I think is really interesting, Jessica Levin is with the Education Law Center. And she said, what the fact that, how does she put it? Education privatizers don't want you to know is the fiscal consequences of private school vouchers. The fiscal consequences. And what that means is what it does not only to your public schools, but your community. That's a really big deal. So if you're just tuning in, this morning, the legislature will meet and potentially override House Bill 10. House Bill 10 was vetoed by the governor, but there is a supermajority in the House until January. So those little minions are scrambling around trying to get their crap done. And they will be choosing to, they spent 95 million on vouchers last year to 416 million this year. And for people that say, well, my money should follow me, or we should have a choice, or parents should have access to good schools. Well, the top North Carolina private schools don't accept vouchers. So what we see is struggling middling schools are the ones that benefit from vouchers, not the top private schools. And the real problem is, Chris Nordstrom says this, is that there are a lot of private schools that are like in people's basements in strip malls. It is because now these people, because there's always one out there, are taking advantage of this, what Chris calls the Wild West environment for the voucher program. The potential for fraud is going to go up if you triple the size of the voucher program, because there are very few, if any, standards that are placed on the voucher program. So the only background check, I didn't know this till the other day, the only background checks that have to happen at a private school are for the main administrator, not the teachers. The teachers who don't have to be licensed. There's no curriculum, no public elected school board to oversee the budget, no nothing. So just go with me on this one. 71% of North Carolinians, Lauren Fox, who is the director of public policy at the Public School Forum of North Carolina, which is what I would do if I, in my dream job. 71% of North Carolinians think we should increase funding for traditional public schools. And that it will do more for education than vouchers. So why are these lawmakers pushing the vouchers? 84% of our children attend public schools. North Carolina spends $5,000 less than that national average. We're 48th in the nation. In Nebraska, Colorado, and I think was it Iowa? Kentucky, Nebraska, Iowa, and Kentucky. It was put on the ballot. For voters, do you want to do vouchers? And do you know what all three of those places said? Negative, ghostwriter. We do not want to do that. No, 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 no. So I would say, if you call your legislator this morning, you think people want the voucher. You think it's to get people out of failing schools. We know the research says that's not true. We know the research says that if you go to a voucher school on average from a public school, a year later, your test scores reflect that of someone who's been through Hurricane Katrina. And you say, well, what might? Yes, there are going to be exceptions. Why is that? Well, again, you're at a place that doesn't have to have attendance, doesn't have curriculum, doesn't have licensed teachers, doesn't have background checks, and has no testing. Do you think it's going to be good? And if you're at a private school that is good, the majority of them don't take vouchers. Is this making sense to you? So when you say to your rep this morning, say, you know what? I'm all for what the people of North Carolina want because I like less government. I'm conservative. I'm whatever. I like less government. Then why don't we put it on the ballot and let North Carolina decide? Well, no, they don't want to do that. Because if they do that, then the truth comes out, which is, yeah, we just want it. And why do they want it? Why do they want it? I'm going to tell you why they want it. And Lauren Fox said this, why we must ask, have our lawmakers been so keen to expand vouchers? Why are they so keen to do it? I think the secret reason is it is kind of being pushed by a Christian nationalist. And so there's this thought of religious freedom being subsidized by taxpayer money, which seems, quite frankly, insane to me. Was it voted down in North Carolina? No, it's not been put on our ballot. They wouldn't do that because that would not make sense. And when I tell you that it's being scammed, it's being scammed. So Michener University Academy, which is in the western part of the state, this reporter kind of went through and looked at all the voucher schools. And it said they received 149 vouchers. So the reporter went to the website and they were like, oh, we only have 72 students. So North Carolina just, gave them, what is that? 77 extra vouchers. Because they just invented that more people were there. There's also this program Chris Nordstrom talked about, and it's called Teaching Achieving Students Academy. 13 students in the school, 22 got vouchers, and there's no building. This is what happens when you just throw tax dollars out to the world. And the other thing, when they changed it this past year they took away the requirement that you had to be a poor family or you had to be in public school. And the reason they did that, Phil Berger said, is, well, because there's never been enough people to take the voucher. And so they loosened the rules so more people would take the voucher, which is not, if people want it so much, why do they have to loosen the rules to let people come? It's like saying we've got to have a Trader Joe's in Edenton. Everybody wants a Trader Joe's. Well, that might not be a good example. And then you're paying people to come in the Trader Joe's. Well, at some point you're like, do we need the Trader Joe's? So one thing they did was they took away collecting data of now how many people are going into private schools with vouchers, of how many came from public school. And why they're doing that is then that, because if you say only 7% have ever been to public school, then you're ruining this rhetoric of they need to be able to get out of a bad public school. It's nuts. So again, North Carolina is 38th in teacher pay. Well, I think now actually aren't. Didn't I say they're 48? They've gone down. Average salary is 53,000. Starting salary is 37,000. 17% below what first year teachers earn in Alabama. We literally are behind Alabama and Mississippi. This year we were missing 4,400 teachers, which is a problem. Last year, well, May of 2023, 19 superintendents wrote a letter to the General Assembly from 17 rural counties. It was 1/6 of the superintendents in the whole state. And interestingly enough, 13 of those counties had a Republican representative in the North Carolina House. And it makes you think like, okay, the superintendent from your county is telling you we are going to be destroyed, and you just go ahead and sign on to the voucher, sponsor the voucher in the state. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. The only thing you have to do if you get a voucher is like basically be a Boy Scout and promise to educate a child in reading, grammar, math, social studies, and science. No testing unless you have more than 60% of your students that get public funds. So a lot of them, what they try to do is keep it below 59. So then they don't have to do any testing. I would also ask your General Assembly person, if North Carolina wants vouchers so much, why did we spend $1 million to market the voucher program last year? Do you need to spend money to market something? And if it's really about choice, if you're telling me that this is about choice and how your tax dollars should follow you, I would say there's a few problems with this argument. One, not everybody pays taxes. So does that mean that we're going to limit who gets to go? And two, if you pay more taxes, shouldn't you get a higher voucher? I mean, if you're going to go with that thought. And three, if you think it should be a choice, then let me tell you about a little boy named Amos, who I belong to. So our public school system, when I did this math about a year ago, our public school system receives $15,471 for Amos. That's $9,865 from North Carolina, $4,093 in state disability, and $1,514 in federal disability. So you have these different pots of money. If I took advantage of all the vouchers available to Amos to leave, yeah, it's a pretty sunset, we would get $21,200. Okay, so almost $6,000 more if we chose a private school, of which there are none where I live. So FYI. But if it's a choice, then why can't I take my $21,000 and give it to my public school? Well, you know why? Because it's not really about a choice. It's about leaving the public school system. That's why. That's why. With the current law of no household limits, 1 in 5 scholarship applicants is in a family of 4 people that makes over $250,000 a year. So Choate County, my county, is going to lose over $100,000 in voucher money, even though we have no private schools in our community. Does that make sense? Is there anybody out there that wants to do that? So call your rep. You're going to go to hometownholler.com, and at the bottom, I think it's on the left, it says find your rep. I hope someone calls Shelley Willingham this morning, who is the rep for Bertie, Martin, and Edgecombe. She is a Democrat, one of 3 Democrats that voted with Republicans, which is unusual. But I think let's look at Tennessee, let's look at Kentucky, let's look at these states where the Republicans are standing in lockstep and saying, no, this is not fiscally responsible. We are not going to waste people's tax dollars on this. Why don't they use the money to make the lower achieving schools better? Because they want to privatize private education and shut down public schools. But it's kind of like what your 10-year-old would do, right? Like, well, I don't want to brush my teeth. I don't want to go to the dentist. You'll save money because we're not going to go to the dentist anymore. And you're like, okay, you're right. If we don't go to the dentist, we're going to save money. But what's going to happen in 30 years when you have no teeth? That's not going to save us money. Maybe you want implants. So if you have all these people in North Carolina and you don't want to educate them, or you want them to go to private school because it's going to be a little bit cheaper for you, how many more are going to be in prison? A lot. A lot. And ask your reps, what happens why is the state of North Carolina spending millions of dollars on a new high school down the street from me? But we're trying to encourage people not to go to it. Ask Ed Goodwin. He's my rep. He won't talk to me via text, email, or phone call. But why does he think we should spend millions of dollars on a public high school and then encourage people not to attend it? If you see your rep at the grocery store, at the Habitat store, at a game, ask them, hey, how are you? How are you, Shelley? Talk to me about this voucher thing, because I'm a superintendent in the community, and this is really going to hurt us. Tell me why you're voting for this. Shelley, why are you voting to send $100,000 out of Edgecombe County that has no private schools? Why are you taking my tax dollars to do this? And I would probably argue that Shelley doesn't know. I think a lot of times these reps, if there was one thing I could do in the General Assembly, but it would look like I was for myself, but it really wouldn't be because I would say I didn't want it, is that we would pay people in government more than $13,500 a year. And the reason we need to pay more is so that we get qualified people to run. No one with a real job can do that job unless they are just doing it out of the goodness of their heart. So what you end up is a bunch of whiteys who are retired and they all run for office. So you have white men who have a little money, maybe they're retired, and they all can work for $13,500 a year. But if you jack that up, $150,000, suddenly you would have teachers and maybe even lawyers or doctors. People would be like, you know what? I could live on that. I'm not going to make a ton of money, but I could live on it. I'm going to run. Well, they don't want you to run because if you run, then they have jobs and they won't get the fancy license plate. True story. True frickin' story. The best way to weed out people is to pay more. And this is a big deal for North Carolina. If you think that having a voucher, like what is it going to do for my community other than take money? If you live in Bertie or Chowan County, Northampton County, Burke County, think of the Hurricane Caldwell County, why do you want your tax dollars to pay for people in Raleigh and Charlotte to go to private school? You don't. So ask your rep that, because I guarantee you they don't know that that's how it works. They're like, well, what you're going to do is you're going to go to a private school and then we're going to give you your money because your money should follow you. Well, what about the people that don't pay taxes and have 9 kids with vouchers? What about the people who pay a lot in taxes? What about the people that have no children and pay a lot in taxes? They don't get the money. hometownholler.com, find your rep. Please leave them a voicemail this morning. It's 7 a.m. They can have a whole bunch of voicemails before they get there and say, this is so-and-so. And if you want my vote, you will not decimate, annihilate my rural community. The end.